going to call this meeting of the Climate and Energy Committee to order, excuse me. And for the record, we do have a quorum. Representative Kraft, have you had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from March 15th?
Madam Chair, I have, and I'd move their approval.
Great. Any discussion to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. So we've got a tight schedule today, so we're going to try and get started right away. The first bill on our agenda is House File 2670 with Representative Pursell, and since she is not on the committee, we will move that, or I will move that House File 2620 be laid over for possible inclusion. And Representative Pursell has an author's amendment coded DE1. I move the DE1 to get the bill in the shape the author would like. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the DE1 say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. With that, Representative Pursell, would you like to tell us about your bill?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee. I will give just a brief overview of House File 2620. As we look towards our state's new 100% carbon-free goals, we need to ensure that beneficial clean energy projects are able to connect to the grid. This is also key for our communities with climate action plans to be able to meet their goals. This bill helps solve a problem for Xcel Energy customers who would like to install solar, many of whom are in my own home community. Perhaps they'd like to install battery or other energy generation on their property, but who are currently unable to connect to the grid due to the incredibly high costs. Over the past few years, certain areas of Xcel's distribution grid have emerged as hotspots, where customers have to pay for large infrastructure updates to the grid if they would like to add more solar or any other type of energy generation, no matter how small. Until recently, a homeowner or farmer wanting to install solar may have had to pay a few $100s in upgrades. Most had zero grid costs. Now there are dozens of homeowners and farmers being told that it will cost them over $1 million to connect their small rooftop project to the grid. This is happening through no fault of their own, and these customers cannot choose a different place to interconnect without moving. This bill provides relief to these customers and pays for targeted upgrades at these hotspots or capacity-constrained areas of the grid. It also encourages Xcel to use innovative tools to reduce the infrastructure needs. Batteries, control technology, and management software can, in some cases, allow projects to connect to the grid without a lot of capital expense. Through this legislation, Xcel will develop and propose a plan to the Department of Commerce that maximizes the number of customers that can benefit, and Commerce will ensure that funds are spent in accordance with the approved plan. Funding for the program will come from the Renewable Development Account and the General Fund, allowing Minnesotans who want to invest in clean energy on their own private residences and land to do so to reduce their own electricity usage should be a top priority as we work towards our carbon-free energy standard and a just energy transition. And now I would like to yield my time to testifiers.
Thank you. And next we have Isabel Ricker with Fresh Energy. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm glad to be with you today. My name is Isabel Ricker. I'm here on behalf of Fresh Energy, a 30-year-old nonpartisan nonprofit organization that advances clean energy policy that works for all Minnesotans. I am particularly excited to be here to talk about interconnection, one of my very favorite topics. Fresh Energy has been deeply involved in interconnection issues for the past at least 8 years, and we've worked closely with the utilities, customers, solar developers, and state regulators and agencies to understand the issues that have been emerging. As I'm sure the committee has heard, there are interconnection problems on our transmission system, which are causing long wait times and unpredictable costs for large wind and solar projects. This bill is about essentially the same issue, but on Xcel's local distribution grid, and which is preventing homeowners and farmers from putting solar on their own homes or land. In order to meet our clean energy goals, we know we need to invest in our grid. We also know that investing in our grid improves reliability and safety. Utilities are, of course, working very hard at this, but interconnection policies are complex, and the current process requires that sometimes, like in many cases in Northfield and other communities across our state, a homeowner or farmer is being asked to pay for a huge grid investment in order to connect their small system. This presents a fundamental unfairness. Customers and communities across Minnesota want to and should be able to invest in on-site energy generation to reduce their own electricity usage. This bill helps solve that problem by providing funding for and asking Xcel to invest in these capacity-constrained locations, or hotspots, as I'm calling them, on the grid in a way that maximizes public benefits and ensures customers with on-site projects are able to connect. It also asks Xcel to look at ways to minimize cost using new technology. By better managing the energy exported from solar, batteries, and other resources, we may be able to reduce infrastructure needed. And these tools will help not only that particular solar or battery customer, but all Xcel customers by allowing our existing infrastructure to be used more efficiently. This bill is probably not the last word you'll ever hear on interconnection or the grid, but it is an important down payment toward the solution and will provide much needed relief to customers that are in limbo today. This program will help Minnesotans who want to invest in clean energy on their own terms, but also these are investments in our shared grid infrastructure and our shared clean energy transition. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ricker. Oh, it looks like we have a brief question, Representative.
Oh, just, it's in general, so if
So
you
we
got
can wait
people,
to the
yeah,
end?
go ahead, yeah.
Great. We got a couple more testifiers, so we'll do that first. Next, we have Patty Ray. Welcome to committee. Ms. Ray, please introduce yourself after you get settled, and then go ahead and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Patty Ray. I live in Scandia, which is in northern Washington County. I'm a homeowner, a small business owner, and also a former Scandia City Council member. I've also lived in Minnesota my entire life. In Scandia, we have people like me who see the urgency in climate change and global warming. We are willing to invest our hard-earned money to help with the solution. We know we must cut fossil fuel consumption and invest in clean energy to preserve our planet and our way of life. We also know that this will take everyone, not just the government or a committee or a community, but also individuals. My neighbors and I wanted to invest in residential solar panels last year and contacted a solar installation company, All Energy Solar. We were told that Scandia had no capacity left on its SCA substation, which has only one feeder. The substation hosts approximately 15.4 megawatts of solar. Unfortunately, the industrial solar projects in Scandia take up 15 megawatts of that amount. In other words, there is no capacity left for residential solar. Scandia as a community supported the industrial solar projects, but we were frustrated to discover that they were blocking our many residents that want to install residential solar. One resident was told in an email from Xcel that it would cost $1 million or more to increase the capacity of this substation. My name and several of my other neighbors' names were never submitted to the interconnection queue. We were told that there was no use in even applying at this point because too many people were already ahead of us and that there were no plans to expand the capacity of the substation. I wondered how many other homeowners around our state are also in this situation that are not being counted in the queues. I was also hopeful as I look forward to retirement that solar would help me cut my utility bill, and this would help me afford to stay in my home. As many of my neighbors, I was also planning on applying and receiving tax credits while we were still working and had the income to support the solar installation payments. We in Scandia are very frustrated because we know that we need to switch to renewable energy, and we are willing to spend our money to do our part, but we are shut out. We urgently need investment in this Xcel Energy substation to expand the capacity of residential solar. I'm sure there are many other communities around our state that are in the same situation as Scandia. The time is now. People desperately want to do their part in the energy transition. We need to allow residential solar to be part of the solution. We need the state legislature's help to do what we individually cannot do. Isn't that government's main function? So please support House File 2620. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all you do for Minnesota.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. And last, we have Hal Kimball with Blue Horizon Energy. Welcome to committee, Mr. Kimball. If you can briefly, if you can state your name and briefly provide your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. My name is Hal Kimball. I am Vice President of Sales at Blue Horizon Energy. We are a Minnesota-owned and operated turnkey solar energy provider. So the concerns surrounding interconnection, timelines, and capacity issues aren't something that's new. It's something that we have started to see all the way back into 2018. Interconnection delays bite into the return on investment for people like Patty, who just testified. These delays also erode the trust in a growing industry that will be a key contributor towards Minnesota's 100% carbon-free future. To assist customers like Patty, we proactively sought an audience with Xcel Energy and have had bi-weekly meetings over the past year plus with their solar awards and other solar teams. While this information shared in these meetings has been useful, ultimately projects haven't moved any faster as a result of these meetings. Capacity constraints are equally as troublesome for our agricultural and small commercial customers throughout the Xcel Energy areas. One specific customer that I worked with in 2022 received a capacity notification from Xcel Energy. The notification identified 17 customers that were ahead of him in the installation queue. This notification also stated that each application could take up to 240 business days to process, meaning Kurt, a small corn grower in near Northfield actually, meaning he could have to wait for 17 years for a small sub 40 kilowatt project to move forward. With the recent passage of the 100% carbon-free energy bill, legislation like House File 2620 play an important role in making this a reality, ensuring that Minnesota has a safe, resilient, reliable, and secure energy infrastructure is a goal everyone should agree upon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Representative Swazinski, I think you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can wait to, if anyone wants to testify against this bill, I'm happy to wait till after that.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this bill? Seeing none, go ahead and proceed with your question.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in general, I was kind of looking through the fiscal note, and it appears there's nothing there. And then I was looking on the bill, and it appears there's nothing there, as well as there's dots. What's the plan with this bill, or like what's going on?
I think that targets are in the process of being rolled out, and there's a process in Ways and Means tomorrow that they'll be made public, and then we'll start filling in dots with allocations or appropriations.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to double check, this is just getting laid over for possible inclusion?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just in general, because we've had a fair amount of bills that have a lot of dots. So once you're given your target, how soon will we be receiving kind of your goals within the committee as far as filling in the dots?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that our hope is that we will be rolling out the omnibus bill next week, so I think the dots would be filled in by then.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I just appreciate, as fast of a, response as that, if it's just, hey, this is what we're thinking, whatever. And just, I'll just start with my questions, if
Please.
that would be all right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And this could go to just any of the advocates or to the bill author. What do you think the fiscal need is across the state to say, whatever you get for dots versus what is the actual, if you have 17 people in a queue in one area, like what do you think the total need would be in this particular area financially, both within Xcel Energy and without?
Thanks for coming back to the table, Ms. Ricker. I think we'll turn that one to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. There are a lot of different estimates of this because it is a complex engineering question. This bill is very focused on the capacity-constrained areas and customers that want to do an on-site project to offset their own load. So we're not talking about large projects here. The estimate, if I may give a number, the estimate of what might, so there are 34 substations that have projects like this. And at each of those, we think the cost to upgrade may be around $1 million. At some of them, it will be less, and at some of them, it will be more. So to solve the problem, perhaps it costs around 30, but I think that's probably an overestimate, just given that there are a number of projects on these same substations. So we're looking at, that would be on the higher end, probably, of what would be needed. Yeah.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're saying we have approximately, how many, 30 substations that are currently, 34 substations that are having X, like either 17 as one or 10 folks that would like to install rooftop solar
Yep.
on their property or on their farm,
Yep.
and they're being constrained because of this. So we got 13. What part of the states are those in?
Ms. Ricker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative. They are largely, actually, we have a visual aid, which maybe we didn't bring with us. That's okay. Excel has a very wonderful map that shows red, green, yellow of this exact question, and there is quite a lot of red outside the core Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So it's largely suburbs. The more rural you are, the worse the problem is typically, because there are historically, often those areas had lower capacity size. This grid infrastructure was smaller, and there may be more solar already connected in those places.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a developer, have you kind of looked at how much are the average costs per, so those 17, what's the average cost that those projects are going to cost those people or the developers to install?
Ms. Ricker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not a developer, but my understanding is that those projects are all projects under 40 kilowatts. Most of them are probably residential rooftops, so around 10 kilowatts. And if it costs $3 a watt, someone do math for me, $30,000 to do the solar project itself.
Okay.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, let's just do the math. So if it's $30,000 and we're asking each of those upgrades to be $1 million, will you only upgrade it up to the capacity of people that you already want to sell to as an industry? Or will you add capacity so that maybe other people a month or two down the road that say, hey, this is a really good deal, we want to be a part of it? How will those upgrades, will you spend $1 million to get you up capacity so you get those 17? Or you make it a capacity so you can do 30?
Ms.
Thank you,
Ricker.
Madam Chair. That's a very good question. And the way that these upgrades work, from what I understand from Excel, is that you can't add just an incremental amount of infrastructure. Usually, maybe for certain issues, you can do that. But largely what we're talking about is needing to go from one size of transformer, for example, to the next size, or one size of conductor, which is like the wire, to the next size. And that will far oversize the wire or the transformer for that one solar project or battery or whatever else generation we're talking about. That's why this bill has a capacity reservation. So any of the infrastructure added through state dollars is reserved for behind the meter, small customer owned projects. So it will allow more than that one project to use the infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Swazinski.
And just from an industry standpoint, why would you come to the state? Why wouldn't you just say, you know what, we're going to target these spaces. It's $30,000 to install it. Obviously, these people have shown they have, extra income. They're higher income people. Why would the state or taxpayers and ratepayers fund that different part of that project? Why not just say, hey, if you're interested in doing it, this is the real cost of doing the project, rather than say, well, this is the cost on your roof. What business is it of the state to come in and say, we're going to give taxpayer money to you or other people's ratepayer money to you to do that?
Representative Pursell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Swazinski. This money is not going to the individuals. if it costs $30,000 for me to put this on my house, it's going to cost me $30,000. This money goes to that infrastructure piece of the grid that we have been waiting for Xcel to do, and they have not been doing. We've seen the demand. We've seen these individuals get in this queue, get on this list, and they have been unable to do that. So this money is not reimbursing individuals. This is going to update our shared infrastructure.
And I will only maybe just add to that, that now with the passage of the IRA, there's also likely to be more interest in rooftop solar.
Thank you.
Representative Suzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I'd say you're subsidizing that project. You know, you're just doing it in a roundabout way because, you know, if the infrastructure occurred and it just happens not to be in these 34 substations, right? It's not there, right? So those folks, rather than, you know, apply, you know, if you're an XL rate customer and you want solar that's in your name, you could go out and buy into a solar garden if you wanted to. But instead, folks are choosing to put it on their roof, and there's no room there. And I feel bad for them that they're not able to have this as part of their life. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, makes it for a very expensive rate of return when it comes to ratepayers and taxpayers. It's from what I read, you know, rooftop solar is probably the most inefficient way to distribute solar, and this makes it worse when you actually have to force ratepayers and taxpayers to upgrade the system to do it. You know, if those costs were borne by the actual people that want it so that they could have it, you know, the real cost to that in person would be closer to $50,000, plus the cost of the, you know, if you have 17 people that want in on a project that costs you $1 million, you know, divide that out, plus the cost of the part that's on your roof. You know, if your goal is to reduce carbon, I think that's what everyone's goal seems to be in this room, to some extent. You should be focusing these dollars primarily where you're going to get the most bang for the buck, and this seems to probably be the least bang for the buck when it comes to reducing carbon. Makes people feel good, and allows you to sell into some communities that can afford it. But does it give you the best bang for the buck? And I would say, I would encourage the chair that this probably isn't the most efficient use of funds, both taxpayer and ratepayer money. So, but.
And final question, Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the bill author, I'm looking at the back page of the DE subdivision 8, reporting of certain incidents. So this was kind of outlines where my question's going to go. You know, all you have to do is talk to any of our PUCs, co-ops, munis. We're having a hard time getting all this equipment to be able to build this out. We have a supply chain shortage as it is. My concern is, have you reached out to any of these people to see if they're even able to get the materials needed to build this out? Because otherwise, this where it starts at line 4.5, there's going to be a lot of reports done about, you know, the utility not being able to get this stuff up to speed because we don't have it. Transformers are 6 to 12 months out, in some cases even 18 months out.
Representative Pursell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't speak to your question specifically, so I'm not sure if Ms. Ricker or the previous testifiers can speak to that. But I would like to just address Representative Swazinski's comment very briefly, which is that I have friends who have put solar on and they have had a $100 connection fee, and I have had friends who put solar on and there was a $16,000 connection fee. We know we need to upgrade our system and our grid. That behooves all of us. That's not just for these particular substations. Between now and 50 years from now, the way we do electricity has changed in the past 50 years. It's going to be changing in the next 50. So we need to have some incentive to get this going so that people who do choose that option, that's their own personal freedom, that's their own personal choice to do that. They actually don't have that option right now because it's cost prohibitive. So just as that's my frame on that.
And we'll maybe let Ms. Ricker answer the question before we go to the author for final comments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Igo. This reporting requirement asks the utility Excel only, actually, this program just focused on Excel, ask them to report if, despite having already made an investment at a particular location on the grid, it was not enough in order to help a residential or a farmer or other small solar project connect. So the reporting is really to ensure that the Department of Commerce and the public are able to see, did our state dollars achieve what we were hoping they would achieve? And are there still other problems that we weren't aware of when we designed this program that are emerging potentially in a few years? So it doesn't, the delay in transformers would be an issue for Excel to discuss in their program design, which they will file with the department later this year.
Did you have a brief follow-up?
If I can just, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So like I said, my concern there is that they put the plan together. Let's just call it a nice, easy round number, $100,000 for this plan. They order it 12 months down the line. Now it's $175,000. They don't have the money to do so. Meantime, where did all these taxpayer dollars go? Like this is just a huge concern. We don't have a steady supply chain to build any of this stuff out. And maybe instead of investing dollars into plans and programs that are going to be putting money into something, we should look into ways to have permitting regulation reform so we can start manufacturing this stuff here in the United States and in Minnesota. That's the point I was getting to. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Igo. Any closing comments to the author of the bill?
Thank you for the spirited discussion. I always learn a lot. I appreciate being in your committee, and I hope you will support the bill. Thank you.
With that, the bill is laid over. Thank you to the bill author and testifiers. Next on our agenda, we have House File 2336 with Representative Greenman, the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority. I will go ahead and move House File 2336 be re-referred to the Committee on Labor. Welcome to committee, Representative Greenman. Please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Chair Acomb and members. It's nice to be here in Energy and Climate. This is my first time this year in the committee, and I appreciate the opportunity to present House File 2336. It's a bill that sets up the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority, a publicly accountable, mission-driven, sustainable finance authority with the purpose of accelerating and the adoption of proven clean energy technologies that will increase the speed and the scale of project implementation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The authority's essential objectives are to, 1, address market gaps in access to financing for clean energy projects and serve communities and markets that have been underserved and the most impacted by the climate crisis. As the economic, the community, and the fiscal impacts of climate change grow, Minnesota has to continue to take action to accelerate our transition to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition to a clean energy economy. We know that the utilities, that the Port Authority, that nonprofit lenders, community banks, credit unions, and more are already doing good work in this arena to facilitate clean energy and energy efficiency. And there are still gaps, and there's a need to accelerate rapidly the work in Minnesota. There are projects that go unfunded and needs that are not being met, from energy-saving projects on affordable housing properties to district energy projects and enhanced energy efficiency for farmers. The bill responds to those gaps and the opportunities by setting up a finance authority similar to green banks in other states, an entity to leverage private dollars for significant public dollars for significant private investment in the clean energy future. 17 states have clean energy finance authorities, and they have used over $2.5 billion in public funds to leverage $9 billion in a total investment in clean energy technologies, nearly all from private lenders and investors. The Minnesota Climate Finance Authority strategically uses state and federal dollars to leverage private investment by doing a few things: reducing the perceived risk of projects, pooling projects to create investable opportunities, demonstrating the performance of clean energy projects in our market, and partnering with Minnesota's strong clean energy ecosystem of service providers using additional investments to increase the uptake of existing products and reduce barriers for underserved and low-income populations. Following the model in other states, the authority will become a self-sustaining entity in about 3 years, bringing in revenue to fund its operations. Quickly, what this does is it sets up a publicly accountable authority governed by 11-member board with representation from government and 6 members with qualifications representing Minnesotans impacted by, investing in, and working in our clean energy transition. It requires the authority to develop an investment strategy and plan based on an analysis of the gaps in the market and input from community stakeholders. And it's required to report back to the legislature and the governor with detailed annual updates on the progress, the communities served, and the level of private investment. And the last thing I will say is now is the time to do this. Through the federal IRA's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, there are $20 billion in available to state-based entities to support the deployment of emissions-reducing technology. We're still waiting for additional guidance from the EPA, but back of the envelope says Minnesota stands to be eligible to attract $350 million or more. This is a big, important opportunity for Minnesota and a critical step to having the resources we need to accelerate our transition. And with that, Madam Chair, I think we have a few testifiers.
Thank you, Representative. First on the list, we have Sarah Wolf with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, and glad to be here to support this bill. As we set policy as a state to guide our transition, we're also looking for ways to maximize that build out to achieve speed, scale, and equity. This tool would be laser focused on mobilizing the projects that would give us investment in emissions reducing technologies and focusing on low income and disadvantaged communities while we do that. The navigators will be able to help communities think about their needs and how participating in this transition can improve their homes and farms, their businesses, neighborhoods, and cities. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. Next on the list, we have Amber Nakvi. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
My name is Amber Nakvi. Thank you, Madam Chair and the members of the committee. I am the CEO of a company called Lake Street Solar. We started this company about 2 years ago. We are a for-profit business, and we started this with a mission to bring solar installations to BIPOC and underserved communities on or around Lake Street for the reasons that are obvious. Everything that the bill author mentioned, I've experienced firsthand. We started with 4 projects in our first year. We delivered those for about $500,000. Star Tribune covered that nicely. In our second year, we've got about 17 projects. We have funding for 2 of them, and we're looking for funding for the rest. My experience, having talking to the lenders, large banks, community banks, local banks, has been, if you're looking for $10 million and you're representing a large portfolio where tax advantage is going to be given to large real estate investors, we have the money. But if you're looking for $1 million, these are too small for us to work on. That's been my experience. Our model is we fund these projects for about 7 to 10 years. During that time, the building owners pay us through the credit that they receive from Excel for the energy that's being produced. At that point, we turn over these installations to the building owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakvi. Next, we have Alan Gleckner with Fresh Energy. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Greenman, and members of the committee. My name is Alan Gleckner, and I'm here on behalf of Fresh Energy. Fresh Energy is a Minnesota-based clean energy nonprofit working to achieve carbon-neutral economies by mid-century. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today as one of the many organizations in support of House File 2336. This bill builds on the great work already being done in the clean energy and energy conservation space, ensuring that existing programs are able to expand their reach in critical areas and providing new financial and technical assistance tools that make more possible for Minnesota. This new authority will help leverage state dollars into accomplishing more than they could alone through private capital, but will also help Minnesota attract federal funds such as the $20 billion available through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund portion of the IRA, which you heard about earlier. So for these reasons, and the others you've heard this afternoon, this bill positions Minnesota to create broad and significant benefits for clean energy, energy conservation, and economic development in key areas. That is why we and so many others are in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gleckner. And we have somebody signed up for public comment, Patty O'Keefe with Sierra Club. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hi, my name is Patty O'Keefe. I'm here representing the Sierra Club, and we represent over 50,000 people across the state. And we also just wanted to express our support for the creation of MNCEFA, as it would help us meet our decarbonization goals faster by making our state competitive for at least $350 million in federal funds. And, you know, I think if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, other states will, which I think is why it's really important for Minnesota to be advocating that these resources that can help create stronger markets and more good jobs come here. We're really pleased to see the strong consumer protections written into the bill and the prevailing wage requirements for large projects, which to our knowledge makes this one of the strongest proposals in the U.S. for an entity like this. MNCEFA would also allow for small to mid-sized clean energy developers to receive needed funding to contribute to the transition. This is important from an equity perspective because the profit from this transition should be distributed across communities and businesses, small, medium, and large, rather than concentrated amongst a handful of corporate actors. And then just wanted to say that the International Panel on Climate Change came out with another stark warning yesterday that the window for averting climate catastrophe is closing fast, and that industrialized nations need to be sprinting towards decarbonization, and instead we're walking, which I think begs the question, what more can we do to ensure we are doing our part in Minnesota and being a model for what it looks like to start sprinting? So passing this bill would be a big step towards setting that example, which is why we are in support of it passing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Keefe. I appreciate your testimony. Seeing no other testifiers, turning to member questions, if they have any, or comments. Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So diving into this bill, I guess I first got hung up on the front page of it, section 1.18, which is outlining the first goal, reducing Minnesota's contributions to climate change by accelerating the deployment of clean energy projects. And paging through the bill, trying to read up on it, my concern I have is that through the rapid deployment of clean energy projects, you're actually going to just increase carbon other places. Again, on that sliding scale, it's the greenwashing that we've mentioned about in this committee. If we're getting the nickel for clean energy projects from Indonesia or Russia, or we're getting the cobalt from Africa, isn't the carbon that we're going to put around the world just going to we'll bring it down here, right? But it's just going to be increased other places. So how is this actually going to be putting us on path towards being carbon neutral, cleaning up the environment?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Igo. And it sounds like that is a much bigger conversation that you are all having. What I would say, and I think that as we look to both what we are doing in the state as it relates to the 100% bill, what we're doing and what we see we need to be doing at the federal level, the transitioning to particularly to clean energy in the electricity space, when we think about solar on both the solar that is currently not going on to multifamily housings, but that would reduce the energy and the greenhouse gases that are being consumed inside. I think, and you know, not being an expert, but following the advice of experts, following the advice of probably experts in this room, I think that this bill does go a long way to saying we need to be taking these steps to decarbonize every sector of our economy.
A follow-up, Representative Igo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, decarbonizing here at the expense of other places. It's well documented that getting nickel from a place like Indonesia has 25 times the carbon impact without the environmental concerns, right? Solar ingots and wafers from China that have a 97% market share have to come across the ocean on ships that account for over 10 to 15% of our world's CO2 emissions. They have to come across the ocean to do that. All I'm trying to say is if we're going to try to accomplish these things and be carbon neutral here in Minnesota, we can't do it putting blinders on to the rest of the world around us. We need to start writing legislation that actually looks at the bigger part of the equation. This bill isn't doing that, and that's why I can't support it today. We need to start talking about these issues because, again, I've said it before, we got the critical minerals here in Minnesota, but we got them here across our nation. We could invest here and actually have carbon negative steel, carbon negative nickel, carbon negative copper, among many other things. But we're not looking at those issues. We're going to take advantage of people around the world. I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing bills that saying we're saving the world here, but we're not doing a dang thing.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at, I think my question was answered, but it was looking at the from an authority standpoint, that it speaks for prevailing wage being paid. Is that if the financing that comes through this authority is $100,000, or is it if they happen to spend $100,000 in total?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Swazinski. And this is actually going to labor because of the prevailing wage pieces. I believe if you look in the bill, it's projects over $100,000, which is something that you'll find in other places of statutes at about the right threshold.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Even if the only participation of this authority is a loan, you're going to require that the loan part, that they would use prevailing wage under a loan, so they're not actually receiving any money, they're paying all the money back. Even if they just get a snippet of a loan, they have to use prevailing wage.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. This is a financing authority, so there's lots of different ways the financing will come in. What we're looking at is the project size, and at about $100,000. And again, it's looking at other areas of our statute where we look at requiring the prevailing wage at $100,000 for the project size, regardless of the type of financing or other sort of financing mechanism we're using.
Any follow-up, Representative Swazinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative, final question to Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Greenman, thank you for bringing this bill. And more of a comment. And I would say that the focus on what I'll call embodied emissions, or the amount of emissions that it takes to build something, is a valid question. Right? I think it's something that we can and should talk about across all aspects of what we do. That said, if you look at the cost of solar panels and embodied emissions, most solar panels become net negative, regardless of where they're manufactured, by their third year of operation. Thanks.
With seeing no more questions, Representative Greenman, do you have any closing comments?
Just briefly, Madam Chair, this authority, and I really appreciate the conversations, particularly about laborers and workers, because one of the things that we have done is really ensure that we are investing not just the money in the projects, but ensuring that these projects are both focused on communities that have been impacted both by environmental racism and also by the transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And so when we think about creating a clean energy economy, we also want that to be an economy that has good family sustaining jobs and workplace democracy. And so I appreciate those comments. And with that, I would ask for your support.
Great. With that, I will renew my motion that House File 2336 be re-referred to the Committee on Labor. All those in favor, any discussion to that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
No.
The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Thank you, Representative Greenman, and the testifiers.
Madam Chair.
The bill is re-referred. That's what I meant.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm comfortable with that one.
Sorry. All right, next we have House File 2892, Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger. That's okay. Welcome to committee. You go ahead and move your bill.
Thank you. That is my motion.
So Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger moves House File 2892 be laid over for possible inclusion, and I believe you have an author's amendment?
I do, the A3.
Yes, and so Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger moves the A3 to get the bill in the shape the author would like. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. With that, Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger, would you like to tell us about your bill?
Great, thank you. So this is Bill 2892. I'm excited to be coming before you for another residential solar bill. This basically just adds funding to the very successful solar rewards program that's already up and running through Xcel Energy. It was initially established to encourage early adopters of residential solar. Solar rewards has been proven to be an ongoing effective use of RDA funds to deploy more solar to the grid. Xcel customers still has to invest the upfront capital to install the system on their home, and then Xcel makes annual payments to the owner of that system in exchange for renewable energy credits for the energy that was produced by the homeowner. This bill also has specific incentives set aside for income-qualified customers who have limited financial resources, and they're given a higher incentive. So this has been supported in a bipartisan way in the past, and I will turn it over to my testifier.
Welcome to committee, Michael Allen, Chief Executive Officer of All Energy Solar. Nice to see you, Mr. Allen. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. For the record, my name is Michael Allen. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of All Energy Solar, a St. Paul, Minnesota-based developer and solar builder. I'm here today to express my support for House File 2892, which will strengthen the existing solar rewards program while responding to Xcel Energy's customers and their continued demand for on-site solar and storage energy. Our organization is proud to support House File 2892 for three primary reasons. First, this bill increases business opportunities for the hundreds of companies that are directly tied to this program. It encourages this industry to continue to grow and provide good paying, highly engaging work for our existing workforce, but also for our up and coming new and young workforce that we must train and help build our energy future with. Second, distributed solar and storage strengthens our grid while increasing our energy independence and security. The more electricity we can generate here within our state, the less we need to rely on other states and countries while building redundancy within our own electric grid. Third, Xcel Energy's customers are not just asking for these programs, rather they are demanding that we provide these energy choices to them. In fact, roughly 86% of traditional energy customers have expressed an interest in generating their own electricity through solar power. Minnesota is going to be carbon-free by 2040, and that standard is now a reality. House File 2892 will help Minnesotans accomplish this goal. Minnesota homeowners and business owners are asking that they be given the opportunity to participate in the carbon-free future. Let's make sure that we give them that opportunity by passing House File 2892. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Are there any other people who would like to testify on this bill? Go ahead, please introduce yourself for the committee, and you can make a comment.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Jeremy Kalin. I'm a clean energy project finance attorney in Minneapolis, working all over the country with a special focus on underserved markets, particularly low and moderate income. Really excited to see the bill and the extension of the Solar Rewards program. It's critical, particularly the low income and limited financial resources carve out on lines 2.8 to 2.10. As I've shared with the bill author and the chair, and understanding the bill is probably being laid over for possible inclusion, I just want to flag that it probably needs a little bit of attention and reworking in order to align better with the Inflation Reduction Act and the low and moderate income bonus credit program and others as written, particularly the terms owned and constructed by persons with limited financial resources would likely be one of those cases where just kind of unintended consequences of actually being a barrier rather than a facilitation to the projects, and particularly to this really critical carve out to make sure that we are using the Solar Rewards program to expand access. So happy to work with the bill author and the committee to resolve that and urge support of the bill now and in its inclusion with in the omnibus bill, knock on wood.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Swazinski, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam.
Oh, sure, Mr. Kalin.
I forgot your name, sir.
Jeremy Kalin.
All right, Mr. Kalin. Thank you. Just to kind of flesh that out a little bit, on 2.8, you said that was a problem, that the $5 million would be reserved for folks. Is it just the wording with limited financial resources, or do you feel like what did you mean by, just flesh that out a little bit?
Mr. Kalin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Swazinski and Representative Garofalo. It happens faster than you think.
That's really
Representative, to your question, the carve out is phenomenal. And in fact, in my experience, actually could probably even be increased, but there's always a competition about limited resources broadly. It's the term owned and constructed by persons with limited financial resources very, very succinctly as I can ever be. The residential tax credit that would be invoked is non-refundable, which means that those with limited financial resources likely don't have the tax bill to offset that credit. Instead, the investment tax credit, which needs to be structured slightly differently than owned and operated by those entities, for instance, the Minneapolis Public Housing Agency, of whom I'm their solar counsel, has a significant expansion, 360 kilowatts on 84 units of their largest new development in 2 decades. And this language would actually increase rather than decrease their cost for that project. And I think our goal is to see the benefit of those for whom energy poverty is a significant burden, much greater than, fortunately, than probably for you or I.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's probably my point too. Is I don't understand why, we heard from earlier testimony that we have lines of waiting people trying to put rooftop solar in on their houses. If you already have a line of customers, why on earth do you need to incentivize it even more? Right? Like, this doesn't make sense. I mean, if you get what I'm saying, like, we've got $15 million, you got $5 million. If anything, all the money should go to people that are poor, and none should go to folks that, are looking for a status symbol on their roof. And I just don't understand why we need to incentivize. This is not a fledgling organization. I'm guessing the Mr. Allen would attest that he's got customers calling him up day after day. He's waiting on putting these things up. We're trying to incentivize something that doesn't have a problem in selling. I get, if you're trying to, sell a pork chop to a vegetarian, you might need a little help. But it sounds like people got this figured out. Like, you understand what your market is, who that is. That's why you're having Carvettes, because they're not necessarily your market. The poor folks can't afford this stuff. Yet we see this over and over and over, like, oh, it's a fledgling thing. This stuff's been around for 20 years, right? It either works or it don't. And the idea that we're coming to the Capitol asking for more RDA money, more ratepayer money to build these projects on people's roofs, I saw the budget targets did come out, at the end of the day. At least focus it on folks that can't afford it. The rest of the $10 million, essentially what that says is on line 2.8 to 2.10, $5 million for folks that can't afford it, essentially, and the rest goes to folks that can.
Not hearing a question there. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, may I
Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
Yes, so I am very supportive of the carve-out to help those that are in poverty. We need to lift everybody up together. I will push back a little bit that those that can afford it are the only ones who could do this. There's a lot of us in the middle who can make it work and can try to make it work, and we want to do our part to help with this transition, but there are levers and mechanisms that would help us do that easier, and this is one of those. And when I think about, like, when you mentioned the lines of people and the queues, there's, when we look at the whole ecosystem of this, there are bottlenecks in other different places. So, like we talked about 2 bills prior with the connecting to the grid, that's a bottleneck that could relieve some of those lines too. So just want to, happy to continue discussion with you though as well.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger, would you like to make any closing comments?
No, just thank you for the time and for the discussion. I really think this is a great bill. I think it helps a lot of families that are similar in my situation, and I really appreciate the comments from Mr. Kalin to make this better so that we can make this work better for everyone. So thank you.
And with that, the bill is laid over. And now I'm going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair and
Okay, while Chair Acomb moves over there, I think I will go ahead and move that House File 2771 be laid over for possible inclusion. And with that, Chair Acomb, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members. Today I offer House File 2771, which is a bill intended to get more air source heat pumps installed in Minnesotans' homes. In our state, we know that buildings are responsible for up to 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, and we also know that air pumps offer a highly efficient way to both heat and cool buildings while also decarbonizing them. In the state of Maine, which is also a cold weather state, 1 in 6 homes have an air source heat pump, and they have proven to be both efficient and effective. The federal IRA, as well as upcoming utility eco programs, will provide incentives for heat pump equipment. However, Minnesota households will need additional support to access these programs and to access highly skilled installers to ensure that their heat pump equipment is installed efficiently and effectively. House File 2771 will provide rebates up to $4,000 per Minnesota household that will install an air source heat pump in combination with insulation upgrades. These projects, when done together, ensure efficient operation of the heat pump, guard against high utility bills, and mitigate peak impacts on the electric system. This bill also includes a statewide energy coordinator coordinator service to assist Minnesotans in understanding and accessing qualified contractors, as well as the different utility, state, and federal incentives that programs that are available to them. The energy coordinator will work directly with Minnesotans to connect them to an energy auditor, inform them of the incentives and programs available, and support them on how to apply for those programs, as well as connect them with qualified contractors in their area who can do the work. And finally, the bill provides funding for training and support to ensure that high-quality and high-skilled heat pump installers are available throughout the state. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think I have a testifier.
Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Kraft and members of the committee. I'm Audrey Partridge, Director of Policy at Center for Energy and Environment. Thank you for having me, and thank you to Chair Acomb for authoring this bill. So as you all have heard, the IRA is the largest and most ambitious federal investment in energy efficiency and building electrification in the history of the country. Even so, implementation barriers remain for many of the opportunities within the IRA. This bill will help Minnesotans take 2 of the highest impact opportunities within the IRA and turn them into real home energy improvements through insulation upgrades and air source heat pump installations. And it does that by addressing the 3 largest barriers that we anticipate for implementation of the IRA. First, this bill helps to address upfront costs. While IRA incentives are significant, the upfront costs to install heat pumps and insulation upgrades will be far higher for most people. This bill will help to reduce the upfront costs of these projects to make them more accessible. Plus, by providing a rebate for projects that combine insulation upgrades with efficient heat pump installations, it encourages projects that maximize energy efficiency, which keeps costs lower for the participants and also reduces the peak impacts of electric space heating on our energy system, which helps to keep costs lower for all of us. Second, between IRA incentives, utility eco programs, and state incentives and tax credits, it'll be complicated for people to understand the opportunities available to them and the requirements of those opportunities. So as Chair Acomb stated, this bill includes funding for an energy coordinator, which will be available statewide to help people understand the opportunities they have and access them. The energy coordinator will act as the entry point and also the navigator of the overlapping utility, state, and federal programs that together make these projects pencil out for households. Finally, the bill includes funding for contractor training and support. Implementation of the IRA will take a lot of highly skilled workers, and this bill will ensure that Minnesotans all across the state can find and hire the high-quality workers they need to improve their home. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to testify? Seeing none, we'll move to member questions. Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Partridge, did I say that correctly? Do you believe that the Center for Energy and Environment would potentially be the benefactor as far as help coordinate these purchases for people, or as far as receiving some of the funds in this bill?
Ms. Partridge?
Sure. Chair Kraft and then Senator, the bill includes a competitive bidding process that will be run by the Department of Commerce. I do think that CEE would likely put in a proposal and go through the competitive bidding process associated with the bill.
Representative Swinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just in general, it's my understanding in times past, like as a salesperson, if you're a seller of these products, if you're a seller of these heat pumps, that you would understand your way to market to families and people that you would, how would you utilize those sales practices for the salesmen that work for these companies? Would you deal with those primarily, you think, if you were to put a proposal together to the Department of Commerce?
Ms.
Sure.
Partridge?
Chair Kraft, Representative, I'm sorry. I think that the ideas we have in mind for what would be most helpful for contractors is to sort of support them on the business development side. Air source heat pumps, as Chair Acomb pointed out, are very popular in many parts of the country, but have not been so popular in Minnesota. As the technology has advanced, they're becoming a much better option for our climate. And so I think many of the contractors in Minnesota haven't quite gotten to where, with that technology, to where they are with other types of technologies that have been more popular in Minnesota, and may need additional training and also business development to help them implement or expand their business to do both the air source heat pump installation and also the important insulation upgrades to ensure that we're not serving waste loads with heat pumps.
Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment on a personal experience I had with contractors on this very issue. Had some issues with our natural gas furnace, and so a contractor came to the house, and I asked about air source heat pumps, and really their response was, oh, no, we don't do those here. And so I think that there's an importance of ensuring that contractors understand the options that are available in Minnesota. And I will say there's a great resource that I hadn't been aware of prior to that. It's the Minnesota Air Source Heat Pump Collaborative. And on there has a list of some contractors that are well informed on this issue. But I think it's really important that we have more contractors that are better informed.
Representative Swinsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, and just obviously this is your bill, Representative Acomb, and my guess is it will be in your bill. The $2 million, do you feel like that's just a number you threw out, or is that a hard number? Is that as a percentage? Because it seems exceptionally expensive from a $10 million spend to have 20% of it just being part of the sales team.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative. I mean, what I guess I would say is we've got a pretty big state, and so ensuring that we can provide materials and education and training to contractors, I think again, there's certainly room for making that different if you have some suggestions.
Representative Swinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just seems very expensive when you look at, between, a $10 million program and it's fed, so only 70, if the $14 million, only 71% actually gets to the purchase of the physical thing. And then you had in the bill $4,000 as kind of the limit per household. What's the average cost for one of these units? Is it a percentage of cost as it's calculated that you're maximizing for, or are businesses allowed to use this program, or is it only homeowners?
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I'm going to pass it over to my testifier here in just a second. But I think there's a range in types of air source heat pumps and costs, and they can vary quite significantly. And so I think that maybe I will turn it over to somebody who's more of an expert.
Ms. Partridge?
Chair and Representative, we recently pulled together some data for a PUC docket on the IRA, and we looked at recent bids for heat pumps and also for insulation upgrades. we found that the average installation cost for an air source heat pump was about $18,000. The average wall installation cost was about $5,000, and then the average attic installation was $4,700. So of course there is quite a range, but that gives you a sense of the average that we're seeing right now.
Good.
Thank you.
Representative Igo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up to you, Madam Chair. Were we talking about, so Maine kind of using as our case study, correct? With 1 in 6 heat pumps, right? I do research when I'm listening to all this stuff to kind of fact check. And I was checking on the federal website, doing some information about what Maine's electric kind of makeup is. Over 20% of Maine's electric grid is made up of biomass and wood products. So I think more of just a comment more than a question here on all this is I think that the reason that we're seeing heat pumps being placed in Maine is because they have affordable and reliable power using biomass or a renewable source of electricity. So I think it's just important that as we move and talk about things like this, we look at how Maine is doing that all of the above energy approach. Because again, we're 1 in 6 maybe using heat pumps in Maine. The other 70%, however, is still propane. Thank you.
Representative Ream.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing this forward. I'm super excited about heat pumps. I've heard a lot about them, but I really don't understand how they work. I've talked to a nonprofit about different ways to save energy, and I talked to them about heat pumps, and they told me that instead of replacing my furnace, I should add a heat pump because in our climate, it turns out, we would probably need both. So really excited to learn more about heat pumps. I think it's smart for us to be trying to transition to this, and I think it's really smart for us to be able to have a program like this because we do need people trained to install them. We need people who can help consumers understand how to use them, and we want to tap into the money that we can get through the federal government for this. So win, win, win. Very excited about this. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Representative Hollins.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair.
End of the day. I'm sorry. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair Acomb, for bringing this. So I have a couple of comments and then a question. So my first comment is, it is so interesting to see the list of supporters in this packet, like all the different people who are in support of this. I highly recommend you take a look at it because you don't often see this grouping of individuals and organizations who are in support of this. So first of all, I want to say congratulations on that. That's fantastic. The second thing I want to say is one of the things I like most about this bill is the requirement for the energy audit that needs to be done, because I think that we really could have gone about this a different way and made it so that it was just extra easy to get heat pumps and have them installed, and then certain people are making lots of money off of it. But the reality is that if your house isn't set up to be as efficient as possible, this isn't going to help you. And so I appreciate the thoughtfulness in this bill that went into writing it. Heat pumps are one of the most popular things that I hear about in my district, which probably seems a little strange, but I got a weird district. And one of the things I hear the most about, and it might be in the language, forgive me if I missed it, but one of the things I hear most about is, what if I want to install my own heat pump? Can I still get a rebate for that? So I'm wondering if somebody could answer that.
Chair Acomb.
I will try, but we're going to look to our testifier for backup. I think you need to be a professional in order to install HVAC systems. And so I think that there needs to be some certification and license, maybe not licensing, but maybe. We're going to ask Ms. Partridge to.
Ms. Partridge.
Chair and Representative, I do believe that this requires a heat pump to be installed professionally. It ties to the IRA requirements, so it's something I'd have to double check. I do know about the DIY heat pump guy. That's pretty fantastic.
Oh.
So I know why you're getting that question. It's a wonderful ad campaign. And if I have 2 seconds to do a shameless plug to Representative Ream, I think WCCO this evening at 6 will be running a little thing on heat pumps and how they work. And so a couple of my colleagues, I believe, will be on it in case you want to check it out and see if that answers your questions.
Okay. Representative Meckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't have to think about it, sorry. That was funny. A little insight on a heat pump. What is a heat pump? Heat pump is an air conditioner that runs backwards, so it backs up your furnace. Actually, they've gotten more efficient over the years. They probably got a little more expensive. I had 4 or 5 bids that I took when I did mine late last year. I should have waited till this year. However, they were all very eager to sell that, because if you can understand, if they're making 30 or some percent on whatever they're selling you, they want that extra $4,000, because it's common sense in business. I don't know why we'd have to spend $2 billion teaching somebody how to make money. But anyway, or $2 million. The downside to them is about 30 years ago, a good technician could actually hot rod them to make them operate in cooler temperatures, whereas now mine kind of is done at about 2 below 0. It simply, there's no heat to extract from outdoor air at that temperature. So, and then the system automatically switches over to my beautiful propane. But that's how it works. If you have any questions, and as far as the rebates go, it has to be a licensed contractor, because there's a lot of that paperwork they typically have to fill out, because I'm still waiting for whatever I'm eligible to for last year. So thank you.
Okay, with that, Chair Acomb, you can have a comment and then closing comments.
I just want to say that how wonderful it is that Representative Meckland has one. And I think what I've read, now I don't have one, though I'm thinking about one, is that they go down to -20. And so, but in Minnesota, often we're below that. So having an alternative heat source is important. But I just really appreciate the conversation, appreciate the support for this bill. And with that, we can lay the bill over.
Yes, with that, the bill is laid over, and we are adjourned.